Om Jnanatirmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Continuing discussion of Puskara. The glories of Puskara, Tirtha, and the whole story of how Brahma performed his sacrifice there, Gayatri came to be his wife, Savitri became unhappy, is summarized in the English book, which is being sent to you. There's also a Hindi book with a full narration of the story directly taken from the Padma Purana, which I started to translate on the previous cassette, but I stopped because there are many details which will be of little interest to the readers of Bhakti Godhead. Just one interesting thing, exactly why Gayatri is said to have become purified by being passed through the cow. She was put through the mouth of a cow and brought out through the yoni, or the genital, the vagina of the cow. So, because the cow and the Brahmin are supposed to be of the same jati, same group, the same status, therefore she was considered to be reborn from a cow and therefore as good as a Brahmin. Indra chose her because she had all auspicious symptoms on her body by the science of physiognomy. Now, I don't know if the man who was translating did a little interpolation there, but there were some funny things. When Indra came to her, he asked her, "Who are you? Are you married or not? Whose daughter are you?" She said, I'm just selling buttermilk. If you want, give me the money and take it." And then he just took her away. So I don't know if that's an interpolation. Anyway, the Padma Purana describes in some detail. The Ramayana is also said to describe up to now I haven't found anything in the Ramayana. But here in the Mahabharata, I'm going to read this section from the Mahabharata. This is from the Vannapava. Is extracted from, I'm going to translate from Hindi. Oh, just before that, there's one thing I forgot to say, the most important thing about taking bath in Puskara. As we visited during the off-season when there are not many pilgrims, we could take our bath very peacefully, without any problems. The water, like the water of the Ganga, is apparently muddy, but nevertheless pure. Alright, now I'm reading from the Mahabharata, Gita Press edition, from the Vannaparva, from Vana, from the part of the Vannaparva which is called the Tirtha Yatra Parva. This is the Vanaparva, chapter 82, starting from text 20. Within the world of men, the leader of the demigods, Lord Brahma's personal Tirtha, which is famous within all the three worlds, is called Puskara. Only a very fortunate person can enter there. In Puskara, in all the three times, that means past, present and future, 10,000 crore, 10,000 times 10 million Tirthas reside. The Adityas, Vasus, Rudras, Sadhyas, Maruts, Gandharvas and apsaras always remain close to there. By performing austerities there, the demigods, demons, and brahmarshis acquire great pious benefit and become fixed in spiritual yoga. Whichever intelligent person simply in his mind desires to go to Puskara finds that all the obstacles on his path to heaven in the form of sinful reactions are destroyed, and he becomes worshipable even in the heavenly planets. There Lord Brahma always resides very happily. The Devas and the Rishis, by residing in Puskara, acquired great pious benefit and achieved their perfections. The great philosophers say that whoever worships the demigods and forefathers in Puskara achieves the result of 10 Ashvamedha Yagyas. On going to Puskara, one must feed at least one Brahmana. The karma acquired, the pious result acquired from this will certainly make one happy in this life and even in the next life. By doing this, one will cover up any deficiencies in offering Shraddha. Simply by doing that, feeding the Brahmana, one gets the result of an Ashvamedha Yagya. Whether Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya or Shudra, if he takes bath at Puskara, he never again has to enter the womb of a mother. Whoever goes to Puskara to take bath there on the full moon day of Kartik goes to the indestructible abode of Lord Brahma. Whoever in the morning and evening with his hands joined together remembers the 3 Pushkaras gets the result of bathing in all the tirthas and performing Achamanna. Whatever sinful activities a man or a woman has done from birth become destroyed by taking bath at Puskara. As Madhusudan, Vishnu, is the origin of all the demigods. In the same way, Puskara is said to be the origin of all the holy places. If anyone lives very purely, following all the proper rules and regulations in Puskara for 12 years, he gets the result of performing all sacrifices and goes to Brahma Loka. Whoever performs Agnihotra Yagyas continually for 100 years, and whoever takes bath once on the full moon day of Kartik month in Puskara, get the same result. I can't quite understand this verse. It says that there are 3 important mountains 3 important flows of waters and 3 pushkaras. They're all they're all originally perfect tirthas. Why? I don't know. By the way, this is Pulastya speaking to Bhishma. To go to Pushkara is a very rare opportunity. To perform austerity there is also not easily obtained. To get the opportunity to give charity there is also very rarely obtained. And to live there is also a very rarely attained great fortune. One should remain there for 12 nights, controlling the senses, eating food according to the rules and regulations, then doing parikrama of the whole place, go on to the next place. So in this way the description of tirthas is being described. Next one should go to Jambu Marg. Regarding the Kartik Mela at Pushkara, mostly people come from Rajasthan, North Gujarat, and other parts of North India. Quite a lot of sadhus come here and pitch their tents. When we say tents, we don't mean the kind of tent you get in America. It's a kind of homemade thing made out of sticks and a little cloth. A pretty simple arrangement. So it's like a little Kumbh Mela. Many types of simple entertainment are there for the people, including all kinds of impromptu magicians and juggling shows and all kinds of things, real rustic fun. Everywhere there are camels, 5,000 plus. From that Savitri temple, to use a well-worn phrase, one can get a bird's eye view of the town. It's not a very long climb, but it's quite steep. One can look down and see the small lake of Pushkara shimmering in the sun, brownish blue, looking very nice, surrounded by the white temples and buildings surrounding the ghats. It's maintained very aesthetically. Unlike many other holy places, it's maintained very nicely. And you can see from the photo, the town isn't much more than what's around the lake. Especially to the north side, there's a little bit of a town, but that's about it. How many temples in Pushkara? Some say 300, some say 400. Like many holy places, apart from the main attractive feature, which here is the lake of Pushkara, there are many other temples and holy places which have come up, which have developed. People naturally, they like to build a temple in a holy place, or having come to the holy place, they get some result, and therefore they want to build a temple there. This way, so many temples have come up. According to the Sri Vaishnavas, the most important temple here is not the Brahma temple, but the temple of Adi Varaha or Bhu Varaha. In this way, they give importance to it. We saw a group of Gauriya Vaishnavas visiting also from Calcutta. Many Gauriya Vaishnava temples There's so many Gauriya mats and other temples in Calcutta and other areas in West Bengal, so they take up bus party tours which go up to Gaya, Ayodhya, Varanasi, Prayag, over to Vrindavan, and then if they continue on towards Dwarka, then they'll also visit Jaipur, and then they'll visit Puskara in between. Often they'll visit Jaipur, they'll go Jaipur, Puskara, and Nathdwara, then over to Dwarka, like this. This is a recognized as a holy place since time immemorial. Agastya, Pulastya, Markandeya, Vishwamitra are among the famous holy persons who performed austerities here. And there must have been numberless, less well known, countless, less well known saints and sages who performed austerities here, taking advantage of the spiritual atmosphere, the favorable spiritual atmosphere. Some famous incidents concerning Vishwamitra took place here. This is the place where he was performing austerity and he was distracted by Menaka, and later on he finally got the benediction from Brahma here to become a Brahmarshi, that he went through so many difficulties to attain this status, and he finally attained it here at Puskara. Many communities have their dharmshalas here. There are Sindhi, Gujarati, Bengali, Maharashtrian dharmshalas. Plus there are many dharmshalas of different caste communities, different Vaishyas, different groups of Vaishyas, Brahmanas. There are so many, within each caste there are so many subcastes, so many of them have their dharmshalas here. That means that members of their community will be given preference to stay in these dharmshalas during the rush season. And there are so many hotels and guest houses also. During the off season, which means most of the year, outside of the Kartik Mela, there's no problem for accommodation here. During the Kartik Mela, it's might be better to bring your own tent. People of Puskara, like most people in Rajasthan, they're very favorable to sadhus in general, but particularly the people of Puskara, they know us well and like us, particularly because the Padayatra ISKCON Padayatra in India has visited here twice, and preaching parties from Vrindavan have come and spent time here doing Harinam Sankirtan, distributing books, distributing prasadam, showing the cinema, and so many ISKCON devotees in the years have visited here, and of course so many people from Puskara. It's not so far from Vrindavan, so many of them have visited Vrindavan and seen our temple there, and they very much appreciate the activities of ISKCON. So the people of Puskara are very friendly to us, and they give us the chance to chant the holy names continuously, because when we walk around in Puskara, everyone will call out to us, Hare Krishna, to which we of course reply, Hare Krishna. What follows is material on the Candana Yatra festival in Vrindavan, which I visited this year, 2nd of May 1995. The Candana Yatra begins on the Akshaya Tritiya day. It goes on for 21 days in Puri, but in Vrindavan for 1 day only on the Akshaya Tritiya day. The idea of applying chandan is to cool the body. If chandan, the heat in India is famous. Everyone knows India is a hot country. How hot it is, unless you've lived through it, those who are from temperate climates, they can't imagine. And even myself, a few summers ago, I spent the hottest months of the year in Vrindavan. And even though I'd spent many summers in India, and it was something I'd not experienced. It was unbearably hot. It's cliche, unbearably, but just that song of Narottam does, Divanishi hiya jale. Our heart is burning day and night. So we felt like the body was burning day and night, because it's so hot that every day, I saw the thermometer every day in our temple where the thermometer was placed, it was going up above 50 degrees, 51, 52. And I read in the newspaper, this was about 5 years ago, I read in the newspaper that in the desert, the Thar desert, near Jaisalmer in Rajasthan, some army people had recorded the temperature over 60 degrees that year. I just can't imagine what that was like, 50 degrees plus. Just life was going on so slowly. It's somehow or other people were surviving. I mean, I spent many summers in, like I say, in different places, Bangkok, Bangladesh, Hyderabad, in interior Tamil Nadu, which is some of the hottest places, but this was something which was something different. So day and night burning. This somehow existing. It's just difficult to walk anywhere, do anything, difficult to do anything. Even to lie down is difficult. You can't sleep. It's very difficult to... You can, but during the day it's just too hot. Even though you want to, you can't. In the night, the temperature hardly cools down, especially in our temple building is made of stone, and at night when you hope it might... Actually the temperature doesn't come down. It just stays hot, and then the heat which has been caught in the day from the sun, it comes out in the night from the cement. So the only cool time is just it's slightly a little bit cooler. It's like 1 or 2 hours before dawn. Otherwise, even to sleep at night, the system, for those that don't have air coolers or air conditioners, which means most people, is to put a wet gamcha under your body, because the floor is giving out heat. Put a wet gamcha underneath, and a wet, not slightly wet, wet, but gamcha over your body. And if you sleep under a fan or maybe on the roof where there may be a little wind sometimes, usually it's just still and hot and night, then you can get a little rest. But after an hour and a half, all the water evaporates, so you have to keep a bucket by your side. And then when you wake up, you again put you can't sleep even very deeply or nicely. It's just too hot, even at night. So again, you put the gamchas into the bucket, cover yourself, and that way it's a little bit cool, and you can sleep somewhat. Really unbearable. It's like in India, the heat begins around the time of Gaur Purnima. It begins to get a little bit hot in the day. Many of our devotees visiting from countries like England and Sweden, they think it's already unbearably hot, and they go back to their countries talking about the incredible heat in India when it hasn't even begun. Then it gradually gets hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter, and but still during what's called the spring in India, although it's much hotter than the summer in where I come from, namely England, at least at the night it gets a little cool. But then when the summer comes, the temperature in the day goes up, and it doesn't go down much even at night. So it's a cumulative effect. It just gets hotter and hotter and hotter, and just at night a little bit cooler. Towards the end of the night, that means just before dawn. Then again, as soon as the sun is up, it's burning. Then the rain comes, and everyone greets the rain. This is described in Krishna book also, how everyone is happy after the heat with the rain. There are different kinds of pleasures. You may think, well, why is Krishna living in Vrindavan, it says even in Vrindavan there was the scorching heat. That's in the description of autumn. But there's different kinds of pleasures to be enjoyed in the different seasons. You'll find there's different kinds of music for different seasons. And just like, how could you enjoy, just like Prabhupada said he used to drink those Punjabi kind of sherbets. You can't, that ice cold sherbet, they have sherbet made out of different flowers, which is very cooling to the body. You can't enjoy that properly only in the hot season. Only if you have the heat can you enjoy that cooling. Or just like devotees like to fan Krishna. So if it's not hot, then Krishna can't enjoy the pleasure of being fanned. You're just like the chamara. You're supposed to, Hari Bhakti Vilas, I believe, says you should put scented water in the chamara. And when you fan Krishna, the feature of the chamara is that it always gives off very cool air. And if you put some scented water, it becomes very pleasing to the person you're chamara-ing, fanning with the chamara. So Krishna also enjoys these kinds of pleasure. They're different. In the eternal Vrindavan, there are different forest groves where the different seasons are always present. So if the Krishna and the gopis, they go in different bowers, and they can enjoy in different bowers. The different seasons are eternally present. So in one day they can enjoy all the different flavors of the different different rasas. Another thing is, of course, that some Arab, one of the Mughals that came, he wrote that the only thing which makes life tolerable in India in the summer is the mangoes. So another thing maybe they didn't know so much about is the chandan. This is very pleasing to Krishna. Prabhupada, of course, he always used to like chandan, that pleasure of rubbing the chandan, and slowly, you see when you're making chandan, the bowl, you rub, a little bit comes, and you rub some more, a little bit more comes, and gradually, you get enough chandan to offer to Krishna and smear on his body, so that Krishna can have a very nice cooling effect. Now this year actually, because the lunar year and the solar year, there's always a disparity. So this year the Chandan Yatra is very early, May the 2nd. It's not particularly hot. It's even quite cool at night still. Not particularly hot means, maybe for someone like me who's accustomed to living in India, I don't find it particularly hot yet. After another 3 weeks or any time now, it could become terribly, exhaustingly hot. Of course, here in Vrindavan they get the Lu, that famous hot wind, which comes blowing in out of the Rajasthan desert, which is very dangerous. People have to shut their doors and windows. That blows. It's so hot. If it blows in your ear, or it can kill you. People actually die from the heat in India, especially in the Rajasthan area. But this year, although it's hot enough, I'm not saying it's cool, it's definitely hot. It's 24-hour run the fan if you're so lucky to be in a room with a fan and there's electricity. But it's definitely 24-hour fan season, and sherbet season, and chandan season. Here in Krishna Balaram temple, on this day during the morning, all the devotees, as many as sticks of chandan as they have and stones to rub it on, and all be scratching away. This chandan, Prabhupada several times spoke about this when commenting on the verse, Nalayasyeva Chandanam, from Queen Kunti's prayers. This chandan is grown in the Malaya hills. It means what was called by the British the Western Ghats, especially down towards Kerala, where the national language is still is called Malayali, and Malayalam, and the people are called Malayalis. So Prabhupada said that Malayasyeva Chandanam, that can refer to modern day Malaysia, or it can refer to that in India also, the Malaya Hills. There are two Malaya Hills. So both were formerly part of India. Now Malaysia, which was formerly Hindu or part of the Vedic culture is Islamic. Prabhupada said now they prefer to grow rubber in Malaysia. But still in the forests of South India, there's a lot of chandan grown. It's all under government control. And there's a lot of dacoity, and there's one famous dacoit, Veerappan, who has a whole gang engaged in chandan smuggling, and they're a ferocious gang. They kill people and all kinds of things. Chandan is very expensive. By law, every chandan tree in India that's grown, it's government property. Practically the smallest piece of chandan that you could buy, small piece for rubbing, would cost $1, which is quite a lot of money in India, 30 rupees. Then you get big pieces also. By law, any chandan tree growing in India is government property. And taking chandan out of the country without permission is also illegal. There are two kinds of chandan: the dark red chandan, which is supposed to be in the mode of passion and therefore not allowed according to Shastra for use in worshipping Vishnu. That's mostly used for Lord Shiva, Kali, other demigods. And the chandan that we use for Lord Vishnu and his devotees, that's the light colored, the pink chandan, or sometimes called white. Now that's often mixed with camphor, which is also very cooling, gives a cooling effect. And it also helps if you have a lot of paste to make to throw in some chandan. It helps to increase the quantity quite easily. That means rubbing means you rub it with little water. Put little water, rub, it makes a paste. You scrape it off with your hand. You wipe it off with your hand into a bowl, and then you rub some more with some more water. Sometimes they use rose water also. Another common addition is to add saffron, dried saffron petals. That gives the chandan, it's also nice and cooling, gives a very pleasant scent, and makes the chandan become a bright yellow color. Although mostly in the temples of Vrindavan, what I see, they don't add saffron. Now, Chandan Yatra starts on Akshaya Tritiya. Akshaya means something which is unending, which is undiminishing. Undiminishing is probably the best translation. And Tritiya means the third day of the moon. This is the day on which Treta Yuga began. Bali, one of the main ingredients for Homa Yagya, fire sacrifice, which is the Yuga Dharma of Treta Yuga, was also created on this day. Ganga Devi also descended to earth on this day. Many pious people still perform special pujas on this day, bathing in sacred rivers, giving charity, japa, offering Bali into fire, and offering Bali preparations to the deity are prescribed for Akshaya Tritiya. And throughout India, this is considered a very important day for beginning anything auspicious, because anything which begins on this day is supposed to get a good boost from the pious effects of this day. It also becomes undiminishing, lasting, because it becomes Akshaya. So this is a big day for weddings, opening businesses, griha pravesh, entering into houses. Difficult to rent a taxi or a car on this day because they're all engaged for marriages. Dinabandhu Prabhu, Mahaman Prabhu, Jashamati Nandan Prabhu and myself jumped in the temple car in ISKCON Vrindavan in the morning to drive 6 kilometers down the road to the village of Chatiga, where there's a deity of Garuda Govinda. Now, Rajmandal is such a place that there are so many deities and so many stories connected with them. It's practically unlimited. Now, on this day, the deity is not dressed. You can see his form. He's a stone bas-relief form deity, about 3 feet high with Garuda is facing you and Govinda is sitting on his back. When you come in from the hot, bright sunlight, it takes a little time for your eyes to adjust, and then you can see this one day you can see his whole form. Otherwise, normally the deities are dressed. You can see Govinda has 12 arms, and you can see Garuda. Looks a little bit like a peacock actually. And then underneath the feet of Govinda, who's sitting on Garuda, are Rukmini and Satyabhama. To the left of Garuda Govinda is Lakshmi Devi. The Pujari, I asked him, why is it, especially on this day, that we can get this special darshan? He told me quite frankly, he's very friendly, nice young man. He told me very frankly that, I don't know. My father knows, he's gone off to the village, he's not here now, and we didn't have so much time either because we had to cover all the other temples also. There was a steady stream of visitors singing Bridge Basi songs. Before you enter the temple of Garuda Govinda, which isn't a very big temple, just has a small darshan mandap, it's all nicely made up, newly made up in white marble. Before you go into the temple, just in the courtyard, to the left is this very small temple. There's no darshan mandap, just the temple is the beautiful deity of Garuda, standing alone, looking very bold and proud. And there's the temple tank is there, which you don't see in so many temples in Vrindavan. It's in Vrindavan town, at least. This is out in the village, and quite a nice big tank and nicely maintained also. Now, Dinabandhu Prabhu told me the story that this is a special lila where actually Sudama, the cowherd boyfriend of Krishna, expands as Garuda in Vaikuntha. So once the cowherd boys, they got information about this and they decided they wanted to see this form. So Krishna on this one time expanded himself in a 12-arm form of Vishnu, which you can see the 12 arms in this Garuda Govinda deity. And Sudama expanded himself or manifested himself as Garuda. Now my idea why on this day this darshan is available is because probably this pastime took place on this day. Now Chhattisgarh is quite a long way away from the Yamuna. The explanation for this is that Garuda, he didn't want to take this form because he wanted to be some distance away from the Yamuna, because he was a little bit afraid of, or maybe respecting, the curse of Sobhari Muni, who had told him he couldn't come anywhere near the Yamuna because Sobhari Muni didn't like him eating the fish there, which is of course the reason why Kaliya was bold enough to come to the Yamuna, because he knew that in the Yamuna and Vrindavan area that Garuda can't come. So you see many of these Raj Leelas, they're all interrelated with each other. Now one very important note for Jayadvaita Swami is that I've spoken to Dinabandhu Prabhu and saying how I've seen his writing actually about Jagannath Rath Yatra in Puri. He's an excellent writer. Great stories. Everyone knows he's a great storyteller, but he's great in writing as well as in speaking. And so I was encouraging him to do some work because there's for BTG, because there's practically every day of the year there's some festival or other going on somewhere in Braj, and they have, of course, for all our BTG readers, have very special appeal. And Dinabandhu Prabhu, he's entered into mood of that to a large extent. So I would just encourage you, Jayadvaita Swami, to encourage more Dinabandhu Prabhu. It seems like he's willing to do it, but maybe needs a little pushing, encouraging or whatever. He was a little surprised that I came to work on Chandan Yatra article because he himself had the idea to do it, although he wasn't so positive about it. But I told him, you please write whatever you're going to do anyway, and maybe the articles could be merged together or something like that, because I'm sure whatever I have to say, in many ways, he can say it better or with a special kind of flavor. Now another thing is that he had told me that Padmanabh Goswami from Radha Raman Mandir had given him something from the Puranas about Chandan Yatra, some pramanas about this. So in Hindi, so he was looking for that to try to find it, to give to me. And I'm going to be pushing him, but I'm not guaranteeing I'm going to get it. So if you don't get it, then please write to him, phone him, whatever you have to do, and get him to send that to you. He can translate it also, of course, and that will do a lot to bring the article up to a more complete standard. Making chandan is definitely an act of devotion. Rubbing, little chandan paste comes. Takes a long time to make enough to smear on the body of the deity, but devotees, they very happily take up this menial and hard work. It's, in the beginning it seems like fun, but when you've been rubbing hard for about 10 minutes, you feel your fingers, your arms, the muscles in your back all start to ache. But you just keep on going because it's for Krishna. Offering chandan to a person is also a sign of respect and worship. Just like you'll see often in India, people before they begin a recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam or any such holy scripture, they may first worship it with flowers and chandan, just touching a little chandan to the cover of the book. Or in Bengal, in the beginning of the kirtan, they'll put in a formal kirtan. That means, say, a kirtan is going to go on for 7 days continuously. Then in the opening ceremony, part of it will be offering chandan unto the mridanga and kartals. Now, according to the Western mentality, it may seem a very strange thing to offer respect to somebody by smearing substances on their body, but this is Vedic culture. It doesn't matter what Western people think, and from all practical point of view too, it's a very practical thing. It actually is very cooling. In Western culture it's considered okay to put mascara and aftershave and anti-deodorant spray under the arms. So in Vedic culture it's quite acceptable to put the paste extracted from sandalwood on the body, especially the forehead, then other parts of the head, and then on the chest, and then maybe on the arms. These are the different places. One thing is, you'll notice in Chaitanya Charitamrita it says that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally offered sandalwood paste to his devotees, and we always see the word used, chandan lepanam. It means smearing on the body. That means you put some of the flour, by the flour you apply it, or even maybe by hand, and you smear it on in our present ISKCON, we seem to have a kind of thing of patting it onto the forehead with many different strokes of the flower. But the real thing is to smear it, according to Shastra. A tour of the main temples of Vrindavan in the afternoon to see all the deities with Chandan starts off in Krishna Balaram temple at 4:30. An unusually large crowd of resident devotees, unusual means for 4:30 arati in the afternoon, there's not usually so many, are there waiting before the gates are opened with the kirtan going on ecstatically at a fast, joyous pace, and the curtains open. Gaurnitai, Krishna Balaram and Shama Sundar are dressed in shorts, flower garlands, and not much else except thick layers of chandan paste. Thick. Even the features of the deities are not so clearly recognizable. It must be few kilos of chandan paste there, a lot of work. A lot of devotees have been doing a lot of rubbing for quite a few hours. Then, as the arati is going on, other pujaris come with chandan, and there's plenty of chandan prasad for everybody. Big rush, everyone pushes to get the chandan prasad, and you see gradually the temple room fills up with faces smeared with thick layers of chandan. Correction, they're not just shorts and chandan, but they have a little piece of top piece cloth also. Big deities and the small deities are all covered. The small deities, the chandan is mostly dry, which gives that light pink color. But on the big deities, the chandan is still mostly wet, so it looks like a little brownish, darker color. Okay, we'll just have to revise some of the things I said. It's proof that hearing from authorities is better than your own speculation based on what you see. Because I just spoke with the head pujari, Mukunda Datta Prabhu. I was asking why Radharani, of all the deities, is not got chandan. So he told me that many senior devotees didn't like that because she looks dark with the chandan mixture. So that led to more discussion. And actually Krishna Balaram, they have thick layers of chandan and they look very dark. That's because they're mixing the purchased chandan powder, whereas Gaurnitai, they're just putting the chandan which is made by hand, and so they have a thin layer. They don't look so dark. So actually all the chandan is dried up. Only Krishna and Balaram have thick chandan on because it's mixed with chandan powder. Whereas Gaurnitai, they have thin layer of chandan on, but it's all made by hand. And Mukunda is saying that next year he'd like to make all the deities with chandan only, without chandan powder mixture. That way it'll be light looking. Because they didn't like it. Just for the benefit of whoever's transcribing this cassette can listen to the nice sounds of the kirtan. Again, correction. Gaurnitai have that top piece. Krishna Balaram don't. They're dressed in shorts. And and their turbans, which are also brownish. It looks like the turbans even have got chandan all over them. And apart from the flower garlands, they've just got a lot of chandan on. And Krishna Shyamasundar is dressed, maybe he has some shorts on, but you can't see because he just seems to be wearing shorts of flowers. And that's about all. Of course, Radharani is fully dressed. So after almost half an hour of ecstatic kirtan in the Krishna Balaram temple, we set out with a kirtan party headed by Dinabandhu Prabhu, leading the kirtan, at a fast march down to the Loi Bazaar area, down to the town area of Vrindavan, to take darshan. There's not much time before it gets dark, so we went quite quickly. First time we came to Madan Mohanji, the priest welcomed us here, and we see Madan Mohanji, except his eyes, his body is completely covered. There's no dressing at all, only thick chandan all over his body. Only his eyes are visible, he's holding his flute, and a thin flower garland, otherwise the whole form is there, covered in chandan. Radharani is also dressed, but her face is covered with chandan. So they gave a nice flower garland for Prabhupada, who was present in the form of his picture, and a nice lump of chandan prasad, which Mahaman Prabhu, the temple president of ISKCON Vrindavan, distributed to everybody else. In other words, put on their foreheads, starting with Prabhupada. Sankirtan party of about 50 devotees from ISKCON. Just around the corner from Madan Mohan temple is the place of appearance of Madan Gopal, Madan Mohan deity. A small temple with quite nice little temple and quite big Madan Mohan deities, Madan Gopal. Bengali Kirtan group going on with Kirtan, as you can hear in the background. And big part of Chandan Prasad, the deity completely covered in Chandan. A big pot of Chandan Prasad to give to everyone, plus fruit Prasad and Sharbat Prasad. So a small little group. Next up, Banka Bihari Temple. Here we are at Banka Bihari Temple. Huge rush here. This is the only day of the year that the lotus feet of Banka Bihari are shown. Only on this day are the lotus feet of Banka Bihari shown. Of course, the system here is to open and close the curtains, and there's a big crowd pushing, so it's very difficult to get darshan at all. But if you can get close enough to see, you can see that Banka Bihari's lotus feet, one is big and the other is small, because this Radha and Krishna combined. So one foot is a little big and the other's a little dainty. No madangas and kartals. No madangas and kartals allowed in here. They say Krishna's a little boy and the crashing sounds of madanga and kartals make him afraid. Of course, there are different sampradaya also, not Gauriya Vaishnava. When we reached the Damodar temple, the next of the Goswami temples on our tour, I couldn't recognize it at first. It's just newly renovated with a big new wall, painted. There's no sign outside even now. We arrived just after 6 o'clock and doors were still closed. It means they were taking extra time because they put in the chandan on all the deities. But we were only there for a few minutes. Then at 6:13, the gates opened and there was a big rush. So many people waiting to go inside. And we couldn't take darshan very clearly, but in between all the pushing and shoving, managed to see all the deities covered in chandan, mostly in this yellow-colored chandan. That means mixed with a lot of saffron. And Damodar himself is quite a big deity. He was completely covered in chandan. Even his flute was covered in chandan. And all the other, on the altar here, there's so many different deities. They're all nicely covered in chandan. Same as at Madan Mohan, the whole deity of Damodar was covered in chandan, and only a small, thin flower garland. A little difficult to get a clear darshan here. Even though it's Tuesday, there's lots of crowds. come for the festival, it seems. It seems Vrindavan is growing more and more in popularity, and even festivals which previously may not have attracted so many people, this one is attracting plenty. Of course, Chandan Yatra is just at the beginning of the school holiday season, where people do take their holidays. So a lot of people here from Delhi, where you can see rich people, cars, and rich people distributing all different kinds of prasadam to the many people here, plus the regular Brijvasis going on their rounds, not concerned, maybe a festival or not, they're going on with their rounds, going round and round the temples. People distributing drinks also, all kinds of tandai, all kinds of nice drinks, cold water. At the different temples, you'll find people with huge tanks filled with different cold drinks. Like Tandai was saying, it's a favorite in the hot season in India. It's cold drink, and it's got something hot in it, pepper. It really catches your throat after you drink it. Very cooling to the system. So big tanks of this, and they're distributing with jugs and free-flowing Tandai. If you buy it in the city, it'll cost 7 rupees a glass, but they're just distributing it freely. But here we are, just around the corner from Damodar at Shyam Sundar Temple. Here also, as at Damodar and as at all the other temples, there's special arrangements, special lights, cloth, shamayanas, all different designs made of cloth. Here there's a sound system with bhajans going on also. And here we see the big deity of Shyama Sundar, not only completely covered in chandan, but also with nice designs made in the chandan. So, Hare Krishna. So it seems everyone's trying to outdo each other in the devotional designs. Again, a quick rush in and a quick look amidst the pushing and the shoving and the chanting. Of course, pushing and shoving, it's all good-natured with plenty of chanting of the holy names. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. That's a sample. Devotees are getting plenty of chandan prasad smeared all over their shaved heads, their faces, their arms. Those who don't have shirts on, smeared on their bodies. Chandan's flowing like water today. Next on to Gokula Ananda Temple. Actually, we came to Radharaman, but they're still closed. Just before 7 o'clock, they're still closed. They must be making some really elaborate arrangement here. So we came to the temple of Radha Gokulananda, the small deities of Radha Gokulananda at the front. Behind them, Radha Vinod Bihari with their unique features. Here, even the dress was covered with chandan. That's something amazing. The dress itself, that kind of butterfly look, covered in chandan.
Hello.
Here there's good arrangements to keep everything nice and cool. There's a fountain spray in the temple. And of course, the Radha Gokulananda temple, there's that unique you walk down for the parikrama path. So you go underground, and it's so cool and nice on the parikrama path around the deities. There, of course, at the Gokulananda temple also, there's the Mahaprabhu deity worshipped by Narottam, deities worshipped, Vijay Govinda worshipped by Baladev Vidyabhushan. Then the Samadhis are here of Vishwanath Charivati Thakur, Lokanath Goswami, Narottam Das, Ganganarayan Chakravarti. Here also, if you look carefully on the altar, you can see a big ball, or a little ball of chandan. In the middle of it is the Govardhan Shila that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to rub on his body. His thumbprint impression is there. He gave that to Raghunath Das. So many special things. Vrindavan, if you took 100 devoted scholars and gave them the job to research for their whole life, you wanted to make an encyclopedia, you might start to touch what is Braja Tattva. There's so many things here. Here we are back at Radharamanji Temple at 8 minutes past 7. People are going inside now, so it seems that the darshan's open. Now here, Radha Raman, the temple is open, but still the curtain is closed. Still waiting for darshan. That point I made before about chandan should be smeared. Of course, I'm just remembering now from 11th chapter of Gita, Divya Chandanu Lepanam. The word said that Chandanu Lepanam means the chandan is smeared. Lepanam means smeared. So Radha Raman temple opened for darshan just about 25 past 7. They're making such a nice arrangement with flowers, a whole flower trellis looking like a palace. And then the lights came on, the kirtan, the ISKCON devotees were here doing kirtan. Kirtan built up. Finally the curtain was whisked open by a pujari in a bright purple dhoti, quite festive looking, and the darshan of Radha Raman was revealed. Now the unusual thing is that Radha Raman appear to be in an ordinary dress. The deity himself is not covered in chandan. The dress is yellow though, and if you're lucky enough to get someone's binoculars to look through it, you can see very carefully, you can see the dress is also made out of yellow chandan. It's yellow chandan on banana leaves. Apparently Vinod Bihari also, it looks like the dress is covered in chandan. Actually the dress is made out of